All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all so much for being here with us this month. This is our 66th consecutive monthly town hall. And I'm Ethan Corson. I have the privilege of being the state senator for the 7th district, just because there are some new faces here, which is wonderful. My district boundaries are, we start on the Johnson side of the Johnson-Wyandotte line on 47th Street. We go out to about 95th Street, and then our state line to about 6 blocks west of Metcalf. So, we've talked, and I really agree with something that Representative Sawyer Clayton said a couple months ago, which was that this legislative session was definitely one of the tougher ones that we have had, certainly since I've been there, and I know other colleagues shared that as well. So what I wanted to do today was I wanted to give you 2 good things that happened during the legislative session. So I wanted to give you some good news to share with you about what happened in the session. I do want to start by answering a question. So we had a really good question last month. You'll remember I talked about how Kansas's credit rating had been upgraded from stable to positive by Moody's, which is really, really good news for the state. And then the question came, where does that put us in comparison to other states? And so I did some research, and here's kind of where we fit in. So there are 11 states that are AAA rated, which is ahead of Kansas. So there are 11 states that are AAA rated. There are 9 states that are AA1 rated. So those states are also ahead of us. So that would make 18, 11 plus 9 would put 18 states with a better credit rating than Kansas.
That's 20.
Sorry, 11 plus 9. 20. Sorry. 11 plus 9. 20. Thank you. It's a group effort. All right, so 20 states are ahead of us. Sorry, I was looking at my notes incorrectly. And we are in the middle with 18 other states who are AA2 rated. So we are at the largest plurality of where states are. So the 20 states are ahead of us. We're in with 18, which is the largest cluster of states. And then there are 13 states that are below us. So just wanted to answer that question, give you a sense of where Kansas fits in terms of that. So now I'll tell you 2 really good things that we did. One of which my office mate and Senate colleague, Senator Petty, was a leader on and can probably talk about in much better detail than I'm able to. But we made a fix to our state CHIP program, our Children's Health Insurance Program. And what had happened is really through just sort of a drafting error that had never been corrected, Kansas had been determining eligibility for the Children's Health Insurance Program at the levels, using the poverty levels from 2008. And this was put into statute, I think largely in error, but it was never corrected. And so what had happened is that our eligibility was much more strict compared to other states, because eligibility for the CHIP program starts at folks at or below 250% of the federal poverty level. But we were using the 2008 federal poverty level for Kansas eligibility. And so what that meant was the eligibility at that time, the federal poverty level in 2008 was $21,000 for a family of 4. The federal poverty level in 2026 is $33,000, or $33,000 for a family of 4. And so we had been using 250% of that. So what this fix in the language to bring it to current is it increased eligibility from a family making at or below $53,000 or less to at or below $83,500 or less. So expands the number of families that are able to be eligible for our CHIP program. We had been trying to address this, to the legislature's credit. We have been trying to address this on a year-over-year basis through the budget since 2022. But the problem with doing it through the budget is it's just a one-year budget, and so you have to then go back and make that fix every single year. So now we were finally, through the work of Senator Petty and many others, we were able to put that into law to kind of permanently bring our eligibility in line with what the real actual thresholds should be. This is really important because there are 57,000 Kansas kids on CHIP. There are 15,000 additional kids who are on a combination of the CHIP program plus the state Medicaid program. And so this was a really positive fix that we made. The second really positive thing that we did in the legislature was we reformed pharmacy benefit managers. And so our folks, folks heard of pharmacy benefit managers. This is something that I learned a lot about in the past couple years. But these pharmacy benefit managers are essentially the middlemen, and they negotiate prices between the manufacturer of the drug, the pharmacy and the pharmacist that dispense the drug, and the insurance plan that covers some or all of the cost of the drug. And what had been happening is that there were very little restrictions on the activities of these pharmacy benefit managers. And some of the pharmacy benefit managers also own pharmacies. And so yeah, that seems problematic. And so what they would do is they would essentially use their role as a pharmacy benefit manager to advantage the pharmacies that they own and to drive business away from competitor pharmacies. And so in Kansas, over the past decade, we have lost 100 pharmacies as a state. And these are mainly in our more rural areas. And so we talk about food deserts, but what had been created in Kansas was pharmacy deserts in some of our smaller, more rural areas where folks would have to drive significant distances to be able to get the prescriptions that they really need filled. Because of, I mean, you can't say 100%, but in some part because of the behavior of some of these pharmacy benefit managers. And so what the legislation that we passed does is it provides that the state insurance commissioner has greater authority to regulate the behavior of these pharmacy benefit managers. It uses, in terms of what the cost of a medication is, it makes it tied to what the national average is. So the pharmacy benefit manager can't just come up with a price with no reference to anything else. It makes it, in part, has to reflect what the national average drug price is for that drug. Let me see what else are the big thing. And so those are really and it bans spread pricing, which is where the pharmacy benefit managers would charge more money to the health plan than they would pay to the pharmacy for the drug. And then they would just basically keep that difference. And so many other states have started to crack down on this. And so it was a really positive step to see Kansas do that. So we fixed the CHIP program, and we did provide more regulation on these pharmacy benefit managers. So I know we've been a little doom and gloom about past the last legislative session, so I did want to share with you two really good things that did happen. And now I'll just turn it over to our next colleague.
Thank you, Ethan. Like I said last month, we're in the dregs of kind of where we have on updates. Most of us do sit on interim committees, but a lot of those kind of get scheduled later on in the fall. let people get a little bit deeper into campaign season. I do have, we'll piggyback on Ethan, but I will embarrass somebody right now. So in the back over there, we have Representative-elect Reed Corson. Lindsey Vaughn, who really ably represented House District 22 for several years, decided not to run. And then Reed decided to file for that seat. Unlike most of us, he was very lucky to be unopposed with both the primary and general election. So he's representative-elect right now, and so it's good to see him out here and listening and learning. So once we get sworn in January, he'll be ready to go. So congratulations to Reed. So just piggybacking on some good things that we did this year that Ethan was talking about, I was just in Topeka earlier this week for 2 bill signings, and I wanted to touch on those real quick. I might have talked about them a little bit here before, but I just want to give some more detail. The first one is helping with financial fraud. So I sit on the House Financial Institutions Committee, and we made it a really important point to try to address financial fraud. So a couple things that we did was we regulated cryptocurrency kiosks, and I talked about that in here before. These will show up in like gas stations, and they'll try to convince mostly seniors to kind of put all their money in, their savings, get cryptocurrency out, and then deposit it into a wallet number that they're given, and then that money's just gone forever. What's been nice, actually, as a result of this regulation, is that the biggest cryptocurrency kiosk operator, because of these regulations, has decided to stop operating. So regulation does work sometimes. One of the other things that we did is we allowed financial institutions to establish a trusted contact. And so what that means is like when you go open a bank account, when you sign up, you're allowed to put in a trusted contact. So maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your daughter, your kids, or whatever. Just somebody you trust to make a financial decision for you. And so if you all of a sudden go to the bank and you're like, I want to withdraw all of my money, the bank now has the ability to say, hey, let's take a pause. I'm going to call your trusted contact and just verify that that's okay. Again, you have a lot of people calling, pretending, especially with AI nowadays, pretending to be somebody they're not, convincing these people to withdraw their money and put it somewhere else. This just puts a little bit one more backstop onto that. So I was in Topeka for a bill signing on that, and so that should go into effect, I believe, in July. The other thing is that a bill about housing. And so I talk about housing a lot in here, but it's a bill that basically is trying to incentivize building starter homes again. Obviously, in these neck of the woods, the most common thing for new builds is tear downs and building new houses, right? Big houses in this neck of the woods. And so we wanted to take a kind of a stab at trying to just softly incentivize building starter homes again. So what this bill primarily does is that if you do, a developer, if you do build a house less than 2,500 square feet, and again, I don't know how many of those are being built in this neck of the woods, not that many, but if you do build a house less than 2,500 square feet, we're wiping away kind of some of the regulations that might make it hard to do so. And so some of those might be in some cities, I'll just use Emporia for an example. They have really big minimum lot sizes that you can build a house on. I think in Emporia, it's like minimum lot size is like 7,000 square feet or something like that. And so like you can imagine if you're building a 2,500 square foot, you don't really need that much space. And so we're kind of reducing those minimum lot sizes for smaller homes so you can cram more of them in lot sizes. So that's good. One thing that I don't love, but I'm okay with is that, again, if you're building a house less than 2,500 square feet, you are locked into the 2018 Energy Code. And that's bad for kind of a climate change perspective. Updated codes are better on climate. But the argument is that the smaller the house is, the less you really need a lot of energy efficiency things. They're just kind of more efficient in general. And so you don't need all the updates that kind of the 2021 code might require. So I'm actually okay with that provision. I see the argument if you're building a 4,000 square foot house, yeah, we should probably make you be as energy efficient as possible, because if not, AC is just running all the time. It takes a lot of energy to cool that. So all of these together are hopefully going to unlock building more kind of starter homes, middle income housing that we're just kind of financially not able to do now for a variety of reasons. Developers are now. And so that was SB 418. Another one of these another thing that this bill does that you might hear about is it touches ADUs, but it doesn't allow ADUs by right the whole state. What it does mean is that if your city does allow accessory dwelling units, which is basically, think of it like a mother-in-law suite in your backyard. I just built a tiny home in my backyard because my city already had this provision. If your city allows them in any capacity, then they now have to allow them by right. And so basically there can't be like a protest petition of neighbors to disallow it. It's your property, you can build on it if you want. So again, it does not legalize it everywhere in the state, but in the places where it is legal, it just kind of removes some of the red tape to allow that. That's all the updates that I really have. If you do want to see pictures of my new tiny home, I'm happy to share that. I'm very, very happy. I have friends in town right now. They're going to the World Cup game tonight, and so it's nice to have kind of a separate space for them and their 5-month-old baby to stay separate from our house. So that's all I got. I will turn it over to our next person. They're all jumping up to go. Representative Clayton. Oh, and I'm Representative Rishu, House District 25. On the House map, I'm the upper right-hand corner over there.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Representative Stephanie Sawyer Clayton. On the map there, that's the middle one. You see the one on the far, yeah, right there. It's, nope, that the aubergine is Representative Stogsdill. I am Chartreuse. So that's House 19, Metcalf to State Line, 83rd to 103rd, unless you are east of 95th, and then the northern boundary is Somerset, and the southern boundary is 95th. So think, Null Hills, Meadowbrook, Ranch Mart. It's kind of right down the main drag of the district. So I've had the pleasure of representing the district since 2012, so I've seen a lot of weird things. So, excuse me, sorry about that. I'm just sort of getting over the tail end of a cold. So what I currently serve on, and of course we will see in the event that I am reelected, I do have an opponent. So, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I will be opposed on the ballot in November. But I'm glad of that because honestly, it's a free country currently. And so the thing is that every single time you need to go back and you need to earn the trust of the people and you need to earn the vote. That seat is not mine. That belongs to the people of House 19. And so I look forward to having that opportunity to have those conversations with folks again and see what is on your minds and what is important. It always changes a little bit from election time to election time. Although we do tend to have a regular constant, people tend to prefer responsible, reasonable budgeting. Now we've talked, it's been a couple of months since we adjourned sine die. I think all of the legislators in this room did oppose the budget. Am I correct on that? I don't like to speak out of turn, but I know I was strongly in opposition to the budget, mostly because it gave legislators a raise without really giving much of a raise to our state employees. And so that's a little bit of double talk that I just honestly couldn't stand by, but there were a lot of other major issues as well. So right now, currently, we don't do a ton of work over the summer, but I am on the tax committee. So I've got a great beach read that's actually talking about the history of tax policy in the United States. It's a brand new book. And I saw it in the state library when I was returning another book. So but in any case, so I am trying to, stay up and stay up with the latest as to, what various political and tax theories are so that I know a lot of, some of the ideas that will be coming in. When we go back into this next legislative session, we are going to see a lot of changes simply due to the fact that there has been a major power vacuum during this last term, this last biennium. That's part of the reason why there was so much chaos, is that we had a Speaker of the House who was running for insurance commissioner. So he was termed out of Speaker, so he was kind of a lame duck, and he's focusing on other things that he's doing. We had a Senate president who was running for governor. So you had our top two most powerful legislators looking not where they should be in the state house, but ahead of them, right? And so you run into problems with that. We also had a number of other legislators that were running for various higher offices. And so when there is a power vacuum, you don't know a lot of what's going on. Part of the reason why you did not see any real major property tax reform is you have one side of the philosophy that's pretty accurate here that says that honestly, property tax reform is really not a state legislative issue. That is more of a local government issue. So, and it's also interesting too, we don't like our appraisals jumping and we don't like our property taxes going up, but we do like to have nice parks, nice roads, and good public safety. So, but there were some reasonable solutions, primarily from the House side, and this is no offense to my friends in the Senate. They were just simply being held hostage by a Senate tax chair that's, she's a little kooky, isn't she? I guess that's a polite way of putting it. So, so who had some ideas that basically putting a flat 3% rate for appraisals, for property appraisals, and holding that at a flat rate would be the best way to help our property tax issues. Now, here's the problem, is that it might look like the state legislators would say, hey, oh, look, we have frozen your appraisals, but you know what? Local governments would be forced to raise the mill levies. And so we would basically be forcing other people to raise your taxes. And guess what? Problem does not get solved. Your taxes still go up. And it makes it nearly impossible for new home buyers to afford a home. So that is one of the main problems with that, and that is why I did not support that piece of legislation. I firmly believe that one of the biggest solutions that we could have to the property tax issue is the fact that we used to have a real balance between ag, commercial, and residential. We talk about the three-legged stool in tax policy when it comes to income, sales, and property tax, but within the property tax structure, there is that three-legged stool of distribution, right? Except the problem is that over the last 30 years, there have been a number of exemptions that have been put in place for commercial property tax. And it's kind of a, frog getting boiled to death in the bathtub scenario, right? Because it's one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, well, this is great. I want to help business. Property taxes are high for commercial businesses. So yeah, maybe some people might put into place some of these smaller little provisions or exemptions. But ultimately what has ended up happening is that they have gotten these exemptions and it has to go somewhere. And so it has been going to residential, so primarily to you. So there is a deep imbalance in that. I believe the way that we fix this imbalance, and I ran an amendment for this in the tax committee, and I ran an amendment for this on the floor. I don't usually for those of you very wonky people, there is a rules proceeding called gut and go, where you run an amendment where you strip the contents of a bill and put in something different. It has to be at least slightly related. And so in this case, I ran a gut and go amendment to put in place a different constitutional amendment. So this would have gone to a vote of the people. But right now, our property tax is assessed at 11.5%. That would have, this amendment that I put in would have lowered that assessment rate from 11.5 to 9%. Just simply balancing things out. Now, again, would have had to have gone to a vote of the people. 50% of the people would have had to have approved it. But obviously it was an amendment coming from me. I'm kind of a cheeky little gal. I mean, it was a good idea, but you also have to understand that when you're working from the minority party, your amendments are not necessarily going to be voted in an overwhelming fashion. And so, so I tried a different tactic. I was at the World Cup game on Saturday with a couple of my Republican colleagues, and I waited until I, watched to see how many drinks they had, and I was like, okay, you know what? You guys are so smart. You are so smart, and don't you hate this property tax issue? Because I do. And our people do too, and I know your constituents are suffering. We can't seem to come to an agreement, but, have you ever thought, this might be a good idea? Now, granted, these are some of the same people that were literally sitting with me voting no on these very amendments, but explaining that to them and saying, I'm a girl, I could never get it passed, but you're amazing. So we'll see how well this actually works, but here is the thing, is that I want to make this pledge to all of you. If I only put forth work for things that had my name on it and that I got credit for, I wouldn't get a darn thing done for you. Because you know what? I am up against some of those structural inequities. I cannot help the fact that I was born female, can't help the fact that I was born here in Johnson County. Actually, I love living here and I love representing you, but tell you what, they don't like us very much. They just don't like our money. And I am a member of the minority party, so I work within the constructs of that reality. And I do not care how good policy gets passed. I care that good policy gets passed. So that is one of the projects I'll be working on. I will go ahead and kind of sign off by saying this, that as ranking minority member on the Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development Committee, I was proud to do some work to make it easier for the World Cup to be here in Kansas City. A lot of that work got done through appropriations. I have to say that normally, sports, I'm not particularly wowed about, but I will tell you this, that I love the energy that has come into our country and into our city with that. I think that one of the things that I noticed, especially after seeing everyone at the party for the Netherlands, is that what our sports need more of in general here in America is more singing and more dancing and more fun chants. I saw so much unadulterated joy, both in the stadium, like actually seeing people do the wave. I haven't seen that since like a Royals game in like 1986. It's been a long time. But watching that and watching the way that other countries have enjoyed their sport and seeing the fact that it is taking place here in Kansas City, seeing in small neighborhood businesses in my district, I saw a whole bunch of Argentina fans come in and I'm like, oh, hi, you guys, here to see the game? And they were like, we're literally here from Argentina. And I'm like, oh my God, so it has brought in people to patronize our local businesses. It has brought in a really good, really happy energy. And I am happy to have done even a small part of supporting that through the legislature. So I hope that you all are able to enjoy kind of the rest of what people have been calling the Great American Sleepover. I still have my fingers crossed that maybe somehow Scotland will end up coming to Kansas City because they look super fun. And I'm not just saying that because I'm like Scotch-Irish, right? I wish Ireland had made it to the World Cup. That would have been amazing. But I will say that, definitely enjoy this time while we have it. I would also urge you all to please continue to reach out to me. I want to hear your policy ideas. I want to hear the things that you're concerned about. And I'm going to stop talking because your questions are more interesting than my monologue. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Clayton. Good morning, everyone. I am Melanie Haas. I represent District 2 on the State Board of Education. That is, I've got a map over there somewhere. I don't know. Top northeast corner of Johnson County, and I also have half of Wyandotte County. So the State Board meets every month. We don't get the summer off or the fall off. And so we meet the second Tuesday of every month in Topeka. This month we got a bonus day. We met 3 days. Our regular meeting is Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we convened on Monday to have a conversation about the thing that you all love to hear me talk about the most, devices and one-to-one in our schools. The laptops and tablets that our kids are being sent home with. And I've really been seeking to affect some policy change there and really help the board get our heads around what exactly is happening in schools. Is it the way that we want to see instruction taking place, and what can we do about it? I am the only board member that currently has, I believe, 10 board members. I'm the only one that currently has a student still in school. Most of the others have long since aged out, with the exception of one that's a little bit closer in age to me. So I'm also constantly encouraging my colleagues to please get out, go into schools and see what's going on, talk to actual parents and students and teachers. So that Monday, we basically had a couple of presentations about the devices. We're starting to focus on how teachers are trained on how to use devices. And this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. My background is in technology, and I want to make sure that if we're handing out laptops or tablets, that there's also some instruction, not only for teachers, but for students. So I will continue to keep you updated on that. We are moving towards our board of 10. Half of them are going to roll off at the end of this year. There are 5 that are up, 5 that have decided not to run again. So we're getting half a new board come January. And so our goal is to wrap up this work that we've been doing. In October, we'll probably have a receive item, and then we'll vote in November on whatever that change might look like. It could be part of accreditation. I'm not sure how that policy is going to roll out. So I'll keep you updated on that. What we did vote on during our June board meeting was we had an agenda item that kind of snuck up on us. Usually we receive an item one month, we vote the next month, but there was an item that affects accreditation, which is an area of state board authority. And Wabunsee is a school district who submitted an application based on a very old, I shouldn't say very old, an older, decade-old law that allows them to become an innovative school district. And the law was designed to create some flexibility so that school districts could do innovative things, whatever that might mean. And so they filled out this application. The legislature earlier this year, for some reason, updated this law, a law that nobody was really using because we're already doing all of the things in the law. All of the flexibility that it created, the state is now letting districts do all of those things. So if you want to have a career and technical education program, cool, you can do that. That was one of the things they had in their application is they want to do more CTE. I'm like, you can already do that. So they brought this application to us. The update that the legislature made was they said that any district that fills out the application in its entirety, completes the app, it just gets automatically approved. Either the state board votes to approve it, or if the state board doesn't vote to approve it, then it just gets auto-approved anyway. I thought that this was all very strange. And the superintendent from Wabunsee came and sat in the room, and so he was invited up to the podium to answer some questions. And every question that he was asked by the board, he evaded an actual answer. Some words came out of his mouth, but they didn't have anything to do with the conversation that we were trying to have. I'm like, can you help me understand what problem you're solving here by becoming an innovative district? He didn't have an answer for me. The answer came later, and I'm not going to give you all the gory details up here, but I am going to point my finger at, well, I'll just say it. The Kansas Policy Institute is really focused on getting a whole bunch of schools to apply for this waiver so that they can all become innovative districts. And then maybe the state board won't accredit them at all. Maybe they'll have a different plan where they'll come out from under jurisdiction of the board. I thought that this was shocking, alarming. We should all be very concerned that they are now seeking to start pulling districts out of the accreditation system and kind of doing things their own way. Someone close to my life sent me an article from the Sentinel recently, and I had to point out to them that is an opinion website, not a valid news source. So be careful what you read, vet your sources, seek to understand, and I'm always here to answer questions for you on that one. Our new commissioner started at the beginning of this month, Dr. Jake Steele, and it's been fun to watch him kind of get his feet under him and build his new staff. I talked a little bit about how we've added an additional deputy commissioner on his watch, and he's also created a chief of staff position. So he's getting things going. And for anybody who's curious what Commissioner Randy Watson is doing in his retirement, he is already back working with school districts and consulting. So I'm excited to be seeing him around the state in the near future. Finally, in June, we received the governor's budget. And so I think I explained last month that the state board we went through the whole budget, just basically heard about all of the different line items. In July, we'll do it again. A lot of our board members will have forgotten what they learned in June, so we'll do all of it again, line by line. It takes a very long time. And on each item that the board chooses to, we will vote and potentially ask for more or no money, no changes. This is an interesting process. I've been doing it this will be my 5th year, 6th year. This will be my 6th year. When we go through this process, we typically ask for more money for special education funding. That's the easy one. But what we've seen from the legislature these last several years is they've been reducing our budgets for all kinds of things. And the big one that really hurts is that the overall budget for the Department of Education in Kansas, KSDE, has gone way down and just continues to fall. And not only that, but every legislative session, this one especially this year, the legislature said, we're going to require you to do these things, State Board, KSDE, but we're not going to allocate more money for it, and you're going to take it out of your existing budget. So we are now at a very bad place as far as our working budget goes. That budget pays for our salaries as board members, which are teeny tiny because we were excluded from the pay raise that the legislature got. And it pays for staff, it basically pays for everything that happens at the state level. We even had a conversation at one point about having to move our offices because we couldn't afford rent. So we had to figure out what that was going to look like. It looks like for now we will be staying at 900 Southwest Jackson Street, but these are some of the things that the budget covers. So I think that just about covers it. I do want to remind you, so with half of the board rolling off, we have a really big field of candidates actually that have entered these races. Both parties are represented in every single one of the 5 districts. I think that's a big thing for Kansas. We have not always had that. Often there is a primary on one side of the ticket, and that gets decided in August, and those seats are finalized. So none of these races will be final until November, and there are some primaries, again, only on that one side of the ticket. So I would encourage you, I'm not running, I don't have to run right now, I've got 2 more years. Please talk to your friends and family. If they live anywhere else in Kansas, there's a good chance that they have one of those races on their ballot. They need to do their homework. They need to really understand. And I'm just going to say personally, I find that the best board members are the ones who are really pro-public schools. I know that there are a lot of candidates running right now that have taught in private schools, are pro-private schools, homeschooled. So you might encourage friends and family to think about the background and what kind of people you want to have serving at the state level. So I think with that, we're about ready for questions.
I'll say.
He is going to say a few words. Representative Jarrod Ousley. Thank you all.
Thank you, State Board Member Haas. So I wasn't even going to grab a microphone today because I really don't have an update for y'all this morning. I just came to say hello. My name is Jarrod Ousley. I do represent House District 24. I have for the last 12 years. I am opposed in the general election come November. And this last year, I decided I was going to say hello listening to the State Board update. This last year, I served as ranking member on K-12 education. You know, and those who have seen me or listened to me before, you've heard me talk about special education funding and the threat that we are looming towards a lawsuit. And it was before last month, the RFP went out from the Coalition of School Districts in Johnson County. That process is still underway. But the KSDE budget, I recall having that discussion in K-12. And our current K-12 chairman, Getz, is out of Dodge City. And I've got to say that working with Chairman Getz has been such a relief versus working with Chairwoman Christy Williams, who was previous chair before. So, you know, Representative Clayton talked about the vacuum of power, you know, with the Speaker running for office, the Senate President running for office. Well, Christy Williams went from chairing K-12 budget to vice chair on appropriations. So arguably a more dangerous position for them to be in. Now, with the change of the speakership comes an appropriations chairman position, you know, up for grabs, right? You know, does our current chair keep his position? Does Christy Williams advance? You know, so these are inside political moves that actually impact our state budget and how the process is run. You know, and the KSDE budget, I think, is spent down to 1% or 1.5% every year. And then what is left there is usually typically reappropriated. And Chairman Getz this year decided that instead of trying to fight to get the extra funding for some of the projects that were requested, he said, you know, if you guys have this left in that 1%, go ahead and spend it. And they can't do that without this. I'm not saying that's the proper way to govern, but you were going to get nothing or you were potentially going to get something. And Chairman Getz is unopposed this year, so I'm hoping that when he comes back, he'll remain, you know, K-12 budget chair because we know it could get worse. I don't see it getting better. And he's been sympathetic to our special education needs. You know, we both serve on appropriations together, and he has asked for you know, what he thought he could get out of it, and we can do better. It may very well take the lawsuit. So, you know, here we go. But I thought I had something else to say, maybe I don't. So just good morning. I don't need to hear myself speak, so unless there's something you want to talk about, we'll just go to questions.
All right, we got a mic going around, so just please wait till the mic gets there so everybody online can hear the question as well.
Thank you. I'm just being asked to stand up. I don't think. Can I just sit here? Okay, thank you. My question is about special education. We have a grandchild who has needs that need to be met through that, but we know that this is a common problem. We understand that there's a lawsuit that is possibly going to happen. And what is the best outcome that can happen if that lawsuit is successful? And what will be the impact on education, both for special ed, for exceptional children, and for the general population if it's successful?
I'm happy to start, but I'm sure there are others that can add to this. I would say that the huge benefit of either fully funding special education excess costs or having a lawsuit be successful is that our districts, our individual districts, especially in this part of the state, would recoup so many dollars that right now they are just out. So if you look at a district like Shawnee Mission, where families move into this area so that they can send their special needs students to a bigger district because they have more resources. And every time a special needs student comes into the district, there's a price tag that comes with that. Their needs have to be met per federal law. It's not an option to say we can't afford to serve these students or we're going to reduce the services that we're providing for them. They are going to give it their all, and they do a great job of meeting those needs. However, it's very expensive, and it takes away money from everything else. And I mean everything. So it's affecting their budgets. And depending on how their year goes and what kinds of needs they have to meet, their budgets can, the cost of special education, that excess cost above and beyond what they would normally spend on another student, that's what really hurts their budgets. But I'm happy to hand it off to somebody who actually works on the budget at the state level.
You know, I've shared parts of this before, but Board Member Haas talked about Shawnee Mission. I was at Shawnee Mission South, where I'm a graduate of. And when we toured there, Shawnee Mission South has a lot of the special education students with very high needs. Whether or not they live in the South attendance area, go to Shawnee Mission South. And so we spent a lot of time there in that part of the building. And the work that these folks do with these students to try to meet their needs and provide them the independence that they deserve and make sure that they are getting everything, it is just incredibly heartwarming, the work that these folks pour in for not even close to the pay that they deserve to try to provide these students and meet their needs. And I also always make the point that Kansas defines special education very broadly. And so gifted students are also considered part of special education. And when I talked to Dr. Dane, the principal at Shawnee Mission South, I said, you know, in real terms, what does it mean when you're not getting reimbursed at the 92% that you should? And he said, every single year, I pull money out of the budget that was going to go to performing arts. Every single year, I pull money out of the budget that was going to go to the music department. Every single year, I pull money out of the athletics department. And so the point is that every single kid is getting shortchanged by our failure to meet this obligation. It is the special education students, but it is really every single kid in that entire building is being negatively impacted by this. So I just want to share that, just sort of where the rubber hits the road in terms of a real in-school perspective in Shawnee Mission.
So if you talk to our local board members, they can tell you exactly where those dollars are being pulled from. And, you know, the most recent lawsuit that was resolved, right? The Gannon decision was over general education funding, right? That's our constitutional obligation. it's arguable now that with the special education reimbursement shortfall, that we are no longer meeting that general education because you're robbing from Peter to pay for Paul, right? And the senator's right that, you know, special education is every kid with an IEP. That's your gifted kids. That's your kids with special needs. That's any child in any district across the state. And then to take it outside of Shawnee Mission or Johnson County in general, in our funding formula, we also have what's called the local option budget. And this was put in 1993 as an enhancement to general budget to put into things like performing arts. You know, that this is a mill increase that, maybe not mill. I'm not on the tax committee, so if I misspeak, please forgive me. But this is an increase the school district can levy as a taxing authority to put to it passes a vote of the people, but then they can levy that extra money to put into whatever they had put on the ballot. So it's not just give us more money, we're going to use it for whatever, but it goes towards whatever they put it on the ballot for. And once upon a time, the LOB was not utilized by several districts. And today, 210, 220 out of our 286 districts have utilized the LOB, and a lot of them have maxed out. And the point that I raise here is that is local property tax that is now being raised to backfill the general education because the state is not providing its excess cost reimbursement to special education, so they're having to make it up for it. So when the state talks about property tax relief, I would really like for people to pay attention to special education because there is a lot of potential here. I think I've said to this room before, something 225 million last year, you know, backfilled by your local school districts for state shortcomings. So happy to discuss more.
I have a question about the accreditation waivers for the schools. Where are those requests coming from? Are they rural? Are they Johnson County? Are they big cities?
The one that we've had so far recently is Waubonsee, so it's a much smaller district. Yeah, not super rural. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how big it is, but they're not coming from Johnson County.
First of all, you guys are great, and thank you. And you've won a new attendee at these monthly dues. These are so helpful. Who do the pharmacy benefit managers report to? Who chooses them? Who oversees them? Forgive me for using the word report, but I don't know what else to use. I mean, they're the gatekeepers, right?
Yeah, we're a couple months away from me like knowing the details, but one of the problems is they are now mostly vertically integrated with kind of like CVS, Walgreens, Aetna, United Healthcare. They all have their own PBMs, and so it's all vertically integrated, so they can just jack up prices for everybody within their vertical integration. So that is part of the problem with these PBMs.
But you're able to put restrictions on their activities.
Some, yeah. A lot of it has to be federal.
But there are probably workarounds within that vertical integration, right?
I would probably, but
Yeah.
the thing is the bill that we passed is mostly coming from kind of rural local pharmacies being like, these are the things that we need to be able to compete with the PBMs, basically. So PBMs will still exist. There's a little bit more regulation, but it also helps out the local pharmacies.
Thanks.
Melanie, so you were talking about schools that were applying for a special, what was it? What was the word you used?
It's a waiver.
It's a waiver.
Yeah, they're applying to be.
Explain why they want to do that. I don't understand that.
So they're applying to become what is called an innovative school district. And without having the statute in front of me, it essentially gives them some flexibility in how they meet the requirements that are placed upon them as a district. So for instance, there is a requirement for seat time. the number of hours of instruction that have to happen to fulfill the requirement for a student in a school year. And so part of what they're asking for is they're saying, well, we want to do some more career and technical education, and students may not be in a classroom for that. They might be outside of a classroom for that. Well, we saw the same thing during COVID. We had students learning outside of a classroom. The hours still counted. So for every item that they're asking for a waiver for, those things already exist. So that's kind of the gist of what they're trying to do.
I'll speak briefly to the innovative schools bill because I believe that was put in my freshman term. I was a strong no against that. I might add that at the time I took that no vote, I was a Republican legislator before I joined the minority party. So the problem with innovative school districts is that it's posed in a way to make it look like a good thing, right? Like we're allowing flexibility, we're making it easier for these students. But all you have to do is look at the people that are sponsoring it, and these are the same people that are pushing for vouchers, that are pushing for defunding. The main champion of innovative schools is no longer holding an elected position for a reason. She was voted out because her constituents in Johnson County did not support her anti-education ideals, right? And yet here we have this bill that was sort of passed and was seemingly not that big of a deal. And look, these sorts of things do rear their ugly head. So that's why you have to make sure that you're fighting against every single little possible incremental change, even when people say, Stephanie, it's not that big of a deal. You can just go vote yes for it. No, we don't support things like that. And this is why. It comes back to you.
So on the ballot is going to be a change in the way in which we appoint judges, the election versus merit based. I want the opinion as to what is the downside of voting yes on that, and that is, and I know some people feel very strongly about that. I do too, actually. But what is the downside of having people elected and actually money lobbying for these positions? How would it affect the governance as you see it?
Well, so I would say, so this will be on your ballot. It does not matter if you are a registered Republican, unaffiliated, Libertarian, Democrat, what's the other one, Reform. So if you are registered at any sort of party capacity, this will be on your ballot on August 4th. Please go vote. There are advanced voting in person starts on July 18th, by the way. So, you've got the, I think the Northeast office right over there is where you can vote. And then I always like to vote at the old King Louis at Arts and Heritage Center. So those are two of the, sorry, I'm always going to think of it that way. But in any case, so one of the problems with this is this. Right now we have our current judicial selection system, which you're being told is, being headed up by evil lawyers. Well, that is not true. Our nominating commission does consist of attorneys and lay people. It has a lot of layers. I could go into describing the reason why that was put in place, the triple play, but then it would sound like an episode of Drunk History on Comedy Central. And there's nothing in this coffee but coffee. So, but in any case, one of the problems with voting yes is that you are being told, oh, support democracy, vote yes, you can elect your judges. Well, guess what? If you read that ballot language, it does not say how the selection process will be set up. Are these Supreme Court justices going to be elected statewide? Will they be partisan? Will they be based on districts? It doesn't say. You know who decides how those elections happen? The future legislature, which we hope will be amazing and full of lots of awesome people. But we do not know that. We cannot foresee, nor should we foresee, what will happen to the legislature in November. What they are asking you to do is to take a vote, and if you vote yes, you are putting the way that your justices are selected into the hands of a legislature that may or may not be motivated to make things go a certain way or another. Right now, you do vote on your Supreme Court justices because they are up on your ballot, I believe, every 4 years, 2 years after their first appointment. So you're already voting. There's already democracy. Don't put it in the hands of legislators who may or may not have your best interest or the best interest of the state at heart.
Yeah, and I think to put a little bit of a finer point on it as well on this issue is no matter how the legislature decides, it will make these judges become politicians. Right. And that means they will be subject to the whims of campaign finance, right? Let's say the Chamber of Commerce spends $50 million to get one of these justices elected. Well, what do you think is going to happen the next time there's an issue up to the Supreme Court relating to the Chamber of Commerce? Mm-hmm. So we can no longer be able to fully trust that justice will be meted out equally, especially when they are at the whims of our current campaign finance laws.
I had a question about the three-legged stool and the personal property tax. Is there anything being looked at on all the benefits that are given commercial businesses, any of the changes? And then are apartments also under commercial? All the new apartments that are going in, how do they play into personal property tax?
So I will say that currently the legislature is not inclined to look at reversing property tax exemptions and various provisions given to commercial, and that is due to the makeup. It would adversely affect their donations if they were to do that. However, we know that where the actual power lies is with the residents. And so I think continue to push for more representation when it comes to residential property tax, and you might see that change. Now, as far as apartment building owners, if they fall under commercial or residential, I know that if you're a landlord, then you're paying residential property tax, and oftentimes if those costs go up, oftentimes landlords pass those costs down to the renters. I've been working on this on the House side. Senator Corson has worked on it on the Senate side. It was in place from 1979 until 2012. There used to be a homestead exemption for low-income renters that ended up on the cutting room floor when the Brownback tax plan was put into effect, because they had to find a way, we have to cut these exemptions to pay for ratcheting down the income tax. We all know how that worked. But part of the problem is that when that tax reform was put in place, we just didn't have quite enough money to put back in that homestead exemption for renters. And so that's not really there. Now, I can't answer the question on if apartment building owners get commercial benefits. I wouldn't think that they would. I think that they would be, but I will have to look that up. I apologize for not knowing.
Okay, so it drives me crazy to watch the Vote Yes ads on TV and how they lie. When they say that all these decisions are made in a smoke-filled room, you can go on YouTube. You can go to the Kansas Judicial Branch. Just type that into YouTube, and you can get every one of all their meetings. The very first one that I watched a couple of nights ago goes through all the people that are on the commission, the nominating commission, who they are, what their background is, how they got appointed, or chosen by the people in their districts. So my suggestion, I'm going to have to go out and canvass, and I'm going to have to tell people about this. I'm going to say, go on YouTube, go look at these things. You can see the interviews with the people that are put up for nominations. I attended a meeting of Boots on the Ground the other day. There were 2 judges there. One of them, I think, had gone up into that nominating position and had not been chosen. But he talked about how the people have to fill out a form that goes into what all financial dealings do you have What are the cases that you argued on both sides? I mean, it was extensive. He said it was like 100 pages, and they have to go through this when they're looking at people to determine who meets the qualifications. And there are qualifications that the judicial branch has information about that as well. So my suggestion is go onto the website and go onto YouTube.
All right, I think we will wrap up there for this month. Oh, Bob, do you have one question? Do you want to do one? We'll do Bob real quick, and then we'll wrap up.
There have been news reports about legislation from this last session. The example is that will result in, should Roger Marshall accept a federal position, vacate his Senate position, and then how that gets filled. Will you just talk about that?
Yeah. I don't know if somebody has a more photographic memory of the details of this, but I believe that what the new law provides, which I didn't support, I always want to check that we did not support, and what I believe what it provides, to the best of my recollection, is that when there is a vacancy that occurs in a statewide office, including the U.S. Senate, that there's a committee that is formed that then selects that person, or selects a person. There's 3 names.
That sounds kind of like judicial selection to the Supreme Court justice.
And it has to be of the same party that the person is vacating. And I think the governor still has to make the formal appointment, but I don't think, did they get to pick one of the 3?
Yeah.
And so then the governor picks one of those 3 people to fill a vacancy.
I think I've seen the same post, and I cannot verify this is true. What is in debate right now is there's like specific language that says if this person is selected, it would essentially skip this election cycle, and then they would not run until like 2 years from now or something. Yeah, even though this is be where that natural term would come up.
An expired term?
Yeah, but I can't verify that, but I have seen the same posts.
And part of the reason why this was put in place is that when then Treasurer Ron Estes resigned to become a member of Congress, that was when Pompeo was appointed to CIA. So the then Governor Kelly, or she's still governor now, but she was governor at the time, she appointed Lynn Rogers, a Democrat, to this treasurer seat that was held by a Republican. So a lot of it is, it's sort of like the turf war, right? And and again, I mean, 90% of the biggest problems that we run into in the state, it's about power. It's about that. So that's what this is about. I would be very curious to see if that language really does skip the next election, though. That'll be something I'll be looking up when I go home. It did?
Yeah, sorry, I watched the hearing. I'm not in the legislature, but I did watch the hearing, and legislative research did say specifically if this were to happen now, that seat wouldn't be up until 2 years from now. Yeah.
Is that legal?
I mean, I would assume that would be challenged.
Yeah.
All right, so let's end there. I so appreciate everybody giving us their time on Saturday morning. I always say this, but I do think it just speaks so highly of our community, and we all feel so lucky to represent such an engaged community. So we really appreciate it. We'll be back again on the 4th Saturday in July. Be safe, and we'll see you then.